Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, if you look at the people that lived in the Arabian Peninsula before Islam, there were a bunch of shepherds. They raised sheep, camels. The majority of them were illiterate. They couldn't read or write, nothing. And most of their life, they were just attacking each other to steal each other's sheep and camels and all of that. In other words, the people living in the Arabian Peninsula were very primitive people. No civilization at all. Then came Islam. And the Prophet ﷺ, in 23 years, that nation changed from that condition to the most advanced civilization on earth. The most powerful civilization on earth. Best scientists, best people in arithmetic, in math, best people in physics, best people in weapons, best people in everything. Everything you can think of. So what in the 23 years that happened that changed this ummah, this nation, from that condition into where they became? And this is a very great jump, particularly it's 23 years. We're not talking about like in 5 centuries. In 23 years, they changed completely. Because if you understand what was happened there, that can help our ummah today. Because we're in a very bad situation as a Muslim nation. Most of the Muslim countries are similar to where those people are. Illiterate, no civilization, no scientists, nothing. There is so many things that the Prophet ﷺ planted in the heart of the Muslims. But one of the main things that I've noticed is that he planted the love of Jannah, the love of paradise in their heart. There was nothing more important in their heart than the love of paradise. And if we look at what was happening, but first we have to understand, before we get to that, we have to understand there is a few things that the companion understood. And we need to understand them in order to have that love of paradise in our heart. The first thing is, as human beings, we go through 3 periods in our life. All human beings. The first period is our life on earth. 60 years, 80 years, 100 years. That's all. The second period in the grave. That can be thousands of years, can be millions of years. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only knows. The third period is in the hereafter. Hellfire or paradise, Jannah. And inshallah will be in paradise. And that's eternity. Anything compared to eternity is nothing. 100 years is nothing compared to eternity. So that's number one. Number two, as human being, every human being on earth is searching and looking, and their goal in life is happiness. Every human being. We're looking for money because those pieces of paper buy us things that we think will make us happy. We're looking for power because we think if we control people and all of that, we're going to be happy. We're looking for marriage, it's going to make us happy. For kids, it's going to make us happy. Even crimes, people commit crimes because they think it's going to make them happy. You steal because you think it's going to make you happy. You kill somebody because you think if you eliminate that person, all the headache you have is going to be gone and you're going to be happy. So every human being, their goal in life is happiness. And in life, there is no complete happiness. It doesn't exist. Always, there will be sickness, there will be death of loved ones, there will be accident, all kind of things. And even if you have a perfect happy life, one of two things is going to happen. Either that happiness will leave you, or you will leave the happiness. So either you lose it, or you will die. So it's not permanent, it's temporary. The other thing There is a hadith for the Prophet ﷺ. He said, the dunya, the universe, to Allah does not equal a mosquito's wing. So if you think about that hadith, you're talking about billions of stars. You're talking about the sun, the moon, the earth, what's in the earth, above the earth, everything, all of that does not equal in the sight of Allah the wing of a mosquito. So if you think about it, your house, your car, all your wealth, how much all of that represent of that wing of a mosquito? You can't even see it. It's nothing. So everything we have is nothing. Having said that, we need to understand how the Prophet ﷺ planted the love of Jannah, of paradise, in the heart of the Muslims in the early days of the companion. In the early days, the first group of Muslims, the majority of them were poor people, slaves. There was some rich, but the majority were the poor and the slaves. One of those, a family called Yasser, Al-Yasser. The family of Yasser were slaves to a person called Abu Jahl, one of the biggest enemies of Islam. And when he heard the family became Muslim, he took them. And he decided to torture them until they go back from Islam and get back to worshipping idols. He took the father, the mother, Sumayya, her son, Abdullah, and her son, Ammar. And the sons were adults. He took them to the desert, tied them, and he was putting hot rocks on their chest and beating them, everything, so they can convert and go back from Islam, to the point that he got so frustrated with that woman, that weak woman, that he couldn't stand that she was strong in her belief. He killed her. He killed her. She became the first martyr, man or woman, in Islam, the person to die for the cause of Allah, the first woman, first person. He killed her. He killed the father. He killed the son. He left one son. But when they were tortured, the Prophet ﷺ used to walk by them and say, "Patience, O family of Yasser, your destination is paradise." That's the only thing he said. He said paradise. He didn't tell them, Allah is going to curse this guy, Allah is going to kill him, an angel is going to come and save you. No. They accepted all the punishment, all the torture, because of the love of paradise. When the Prophet ﷺ, they kept harassing him in Mecca, and he decided to immigrate to Medina. The people of Medina were called Al-Ansar, the helper. And they came to Mecca to do an agreement with the Prophet. What is he looking for? What does he want? So they came 73 people and 2 women, and they gathered with the Prophet. And it was called Pledge of Aqaba, the agreement of Al-Aqaba. That's a place where they met. So they asked him, "What do you want from us? Ask." So he said, "All the things that I want you to do in Islam, worship Allah, none but Allah, and all the things about Islam, Salah, everything." And then they asked him, "What else for yourself?" He said, "That you protect me as you protect yourself, your wives, and your children." Think about it. What he's asking them to do is become enemy with the whole Arabian Peninsula, because nobody's following that religion. So they're going to be enemy with all of them. They may lose their wealth, they may lose their wives, their children, everything. So they asked him, "What if we deliver and we do everything you asked for? What do we get in return?" He said, "Al-Jannah, paradise." He didn't say anything else. Paradise. The Ansar, they were so excited. They said, "We accept the deal." And they were jumping, "Open your hand so we can shake your hand." Everyone was pushing the other to shake the hand of the Prophet, thinking that if he shake his hand before his brother, he's going to get to Jannah before his brother. And that's all they wanted in exchange. Jannah, paradise. Look how the love of Jannah in their heart. One of the companions, when the Prophet give permission for people to emigrate. One of the companions was named Suhaib. Suhaib was a Roman. He came from Rome. He was so poor and he couldn't live there. So he immigrated to Kaaba, to Mecca, to look for opportunity. And he came to Mecca and he became a very wealthy person. So Suhaib, after he became Muslim, the Prophet gave permission that you can immigrate to Medina. So he took his wealth, and he was so wealthy, he put it on 10 camels. 10 camels at the time is like having 10 trucks loading your wealth. So he had 10 camels, and he was leaving Mecca. The people of Quraysh, of Mecca, heard of it, so they went around him and stopped him. And they said, you came to us poor, with nothing, and now you want to leave with all that wealth? No way. You want to leave? Leave all your wealth. So he looked at them and said, if I leave all my wealth, would you let me go? They said yes. Nobody's going to do that. They said yes. He said, take all my wealth. They became mad. And they said, and the camel you're riding. He got off the camel and said, and take the camel I'm riding. And they said, the robe you're wearing. He took off the robe and he said, and the robe I'm wearing. They left him with a piece of cloth to cover his private parts. Leaving on his way out, he met the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet told him, it was a profitable trade, Suhaib. It's a profitable trade, Suhaib. He traded everything for Jannah. Suhaib was laughing, happy. And he left. Love of Jannah in his heart. That's what they had. In the Battle of Badr, the first battle for Muslims, the Muslims were 300 people. The unbeliever were 1,000. The Muslim had 2 horses. The non-believer had 100 horse. The Muslim had 70 camels. The non-believer had 700 camels. Horses and camels were like tanks in today's military. They were like tanks. And if you look at the balance between those two forces, there was no comparison. The Muslim definitely will be crushed, not defeated, crushed. But there is one thing that the Prophet ﷺ said to them. After they were ready to get to the war, he said, get up to enter paradise, which is equal in width to the heavens and the earth. That's the only thing he said to them. And everybody got up. And they eventually won. But the interesting thing, one of the companions was standing next to the Prophet. His name is Al-Umayr ibn al-Humam. And he said, wow. So the Prophet looked at him and said, why did you say that? He said, a paradise which equal in width to the heavens and the earth? So the Prophet said, yes. He said, make dua to Allah that I can be one of those people. He said, you are going to be one of the people of paradise. So Al-Umayr was eating some dates. He had some dates in his hand. Then he looks at the dates and he said, am I going to live till I finish those dates? This is a very long life. He threw the dates away and he went into the battle and he was killed. Love of Jannah. That's what was in his heart. Another thing to make the people love Jannah, the Prophet ﷺ, there was a man named Abdullah ibn Unais. It's a long story. I'm just going to tell you the last part of it. It's a long story. The Prophet ordered him to do a mission. The chances of him coming back alive is not that high. Very little, the chances of coming back alive. And he went. And the Prophet was sitting with the companion and he came back. And the Prophet looked at him and he said, did you do it? And he said, yes, Rasulullah, I did it. So the Prophet got up and said, wait for me here. I have something good for you. What would cross your mind? I have something good for you. The Prophet went inside his house and came back. And he gave him a stick. Yes, a small piece of wood, a stick. He gave it to him. So he looked at it and then he told him, take this and give it back to me on the day of judgment, I'll enter you Jannah. Now he has something in his hand, Jannah. The man says, Abdullah says, it never left my hand all my life. Sleeping, eating, showering, whatever, it was in his hand. And he said, and I ordered my family, if I die, when I die, they bury the stick with me. So on the day of judgment, I go to the Prophet and say, the stick, messenger of Allah, enter me Jannah. One thing I just want to clarify. The Prophet ﷺ, Allah says about him, وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى. Nor does he speak of his own desire. So I wanted to say that because I mentioned several times that he promised Jannah. Nobody can decide and promise Jannah except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the Prophet was ordered by Allah to say that. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can decide who goes to Jannah and who goes to heaven. Not the Prophet. Alayhi salatu wasalam. He cannot do that. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I want to make sure that we understand when the Prophet was making that commitment is because he is allowed, he is ordered by Allah to say that. Another thing, the Prophet ﷺ, to make people feel the Jannah, he said, between my house and the pulpit, the place that he will stand on to give khutbah, there is a garden of the gardens of paradise. So people feel it. And if any of you went to Medina and went to the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ, that space is so crowded, but people squeeze in there because they want to be in a part of Jannah, a part of Jannah, a part of paradise. And some scholars say they believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most generous. If He allowed a human being to go to Jannah on earth in the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ, He's not going to deprive him of going to Jannah in the hereafter. They are hoping that Allah will allow us to do that. And one time the Prophet ﷺ was doing prayer, jama'ah prayer, and he was standing in the front and doing the prayer. While he was doing the prayer, he stepped to the front and extended his hand. And then he came back and continued the prayer and finished the prayer. So the companion came to him and said, is there something new that we have to learn about in the prayer, Messenger of Allah? He said, did you see me? They said, yes, we saw you doing this. He said, when I was doing prayer, I was shown paradise, and I was shown the fruit of paradise. And I wanted to get a bunch of grapes from the fruit of paradise. If I was allowed to take it, it would have been eaten from you until the day of judgment. Now they start to feel it. They sense it in their heart. They feel it in their heart, Jannah. Everybody feel it in their heart. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says, the space which a whip occupies in paradise, if you look at the whip, it's very thin and long. So if you wrap it around, it may, you may have 1 foot in that place, maybe 2 feet. But he said the space which a whip occupies in paradise is better than this world and what's in it. Now people sense more. This is paradise that we would like to go to. It's better than everything around us, all the wealth, everything. And the Prophet ﷺ used paradise to solve a lot of our problem in life. A lot of the problem. To teach us patience. Ibn Abbas, he was walking with a person, and then he told him, do you want to see a person of paradise? He said, yes. He said, you see that old woman over there? He said, yeah. He said, she's a person of paradise. She came to the Prophet ﷺ and told him, I have epilepsy and I get seizures. And when I get seizures, I fall on the ground and my body gets exposed. So make dua to Allah that He cures me. So the Prophet ﷺ told her, if you wish, I can make dua to Allah to cure you. But if you wish, you can be patient and you will get Jannah, you will get paradise. So she said, I'll be patient. And then she walked a few steps and came back. And she said, but I get exposed when I get the seizures. Make dua to Allah that when I get the seizures, my body does not get exposed. So the Prophet raised his hand and made dua to Allah. And Ibn Abbas says she always get the seizure. Not a piece of her body shows. Always covered. But now you have a walking example of Jannah. Everybody looking at her. She's a person of Jannah. So that's how he makes people love Jannah. And if you look at it, even how he got people to be educated. There is so many hadiths about education. But the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever travels a path in search of knowledge, Allah makes it easy for him a path to paradise. So now this nation that most of them were illiterate, they became the most literate people, studying, researching, doing every discovery that you can imagine, because they want a path to Jannah. That's what they were looking for. Not today, when we ask our kids to study, no, people loved it. They were eating the books. They love it because they want to get to Jannah. That's a way to get to Jannah. And even some of the social problems, the Prophet ﷺ solved it with Jannah. Orphans. People mistreated orphans all the time. Nobody cared about orphans. But one of the hadiths of the Prophet about orphans that made people rush and compete to take care of orphans, he said, I and the one who looks after an orphan will be like this in paradise. And he held his two fingers next to each other. Everybody wanted to be next to the Prophet in paradise. So now you see all those foundations, the orphanage that take care of orphan, people donating to orphan, all because of those hadiths. People love Jannah, want to be there. Even achieving physical excellence, physical strength. The Prophet ﷺ was sitting with a companion and they were talking about strategy against the unbeliever because of war. And he noticed a person was sitting far away, and that person got up and jumped on a horse and took off. He was a spy for the unbeliever. So the Prophet ﷺ said, who can get me this man and I promise him paradise? So a man got up and jumped on a mule and took off. Another man got up and jumped on a camel and took off. A person called Salam ibn al-Aqwa, he got up, has nothing, took off running. He took off running and kept running, remembering the Jannah. He passed the guy with the mule. He kept running and running and running. And he passed the guy with the camel. Then he says, in the hadith he says, then my legs gave up. And I was out of breath, I couldn't. Then I remembered the Jannah. And I took off again and fast until I saw the man getting off his horse to rest. And I ran until I jumped on him and tied him up and said, come with me, you are my paradise. That's what paradise makes it people. That's how it changed people. So inshallah, the remainder of Ramadan, I'll talk to you about what Allah and the Prophet ﷺ told us about Jannah. I'll describe to you the Jannah. I'll take you inshallah to your house in Jannah. How does it look? What does it have? All the things. So inshallah by the end of the Ramadan, we all have the love of Jannah in our hearts. Inshallah.